This is Put It Together Conversations. I don't know why I always pause there. This is Put It Together Conversations. I am your host, Daniel G Garza, with my co-host, life coach Tommy. I don't know why I'm pausing today. I guess because I haven't had coffee. It's
there you go. Get you some.
Yeah, I got here, and again, just in case you know somebody there, Tommy made me some coffee. So for those of you joining us, yes, Chris is back.
Chris.
For those of you joining us, this is part of a series. This is a spin-off of Put It Together podcast. So for those of you that have been following me over the last 7 years with Put It Together podcast, we just celebrated 7 years. And this past Wednesday was episode 250. So I want to thank my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for his help. And if you have not listened to that episode, go back. There's a lot of history of how Put It Together was put together. And I decided to make a spin-off show because some of the guests that I had on the show, Tommy was a guest on Put It Together podcast, are experts in their field. And I thought they would be really great guests to bring back and talk about their expertise. Tommy Lee Kirby is a life coach, and if you want to just, for the folks who are new to the show, give him a little.
Yeah. So I'm a life coach, and my main focus is helping people find self-empowerment and creating positive, permanent growth for their personal lives. So that's my focus. Also, there's a huge focus on communication, usually the relationship that one has with oneself. I always say, if you don't have a positive relationship with yourself, it is virtually impossible to have a positive relationship with anyone else in your life. So the first sessions are always focused on essentially getting you back on your side so you can fight for yourself and all this stuff that happens in the world.
So if you want to go back and watch these, you can find these on the Put It Together podcast Facebook page, or you can go to YouTube. Look me up, Daniel G Garza, and there's a section there called Conversations, and you can find the conversations. One of our other guests has been Kai Kalama, who's an independent musician. He has also been on the show, so go check this out, find him, and then if you have any questions along the show, please feel free to ask, and we will answer them as possible. So today's topic.
Twofold. First, we can dive into the true definition of failure. This is my biggest thing when people feel like they've failed at things. One of the things that I wanted to cover with the definition of failure, basically to Tarantino it, I'm going to kind of give the spoiler, give the ending, and then we'll talk about what that means. The spoiler is true failure is when you give up. It's when you quit. When you say, all right, this isn't possible, I can't do this, and then you move on to something else, completely letting go of whatever it is you aim to achieve, whether it be a dream, it could be a relationship you were working on, it could be a relationship with yourself, it could be going to the gym. True failure is giving up on that.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people think, well, I failed at this, I failed at that, I failed at this, but they're still trying. If you experience a failure in that regard, the failure is actually either a mistake or just a challenge that needs to be overcome. It's not really a failure in my definition. And essentially, those mistakes and those challenges are there to learn from.
Okay.
So if it's in that regard where there's a failure that you can learn from, what I help my clients do is realign their focus. Is like, let's not look at that as failure. Let's look at that as something positive, a mistake or a challenge that you can learn from.
Okay. So again, like we've been doing on this show, is kind of setting up the example. And I like to use me as an example usually, because almost anything you've talked about, I've been there. For instance, let's talk acting, because we were talking about acting before we started the show. I'm an actor as well. I've been writing a script, like most actors in LA have been writing their own scripts. There's points where I've given up on it and just said, I can't move forward, I'm blocked. But I eventually come back to it. That wouldn't be categorized as a failure.
No, that is not a failure.
Okay.
So this is kind of on a tangent, but a really solid example of just staying the course and not giving up and not failing. Tony Robbins brought this up as an example on a seminar he did years ago. He said a baby would never fail at walking, because he asked the question is like how many parents or how many parents let their children give up on trying to walk.
Right. We keep encouraging them. Yeah.
We keep encouraging them. We keep lifting them, and they are determined because they see everyone else doing it. I'm going to get up. I'm going to be walking. So they try until they actually start walking.
Okay.
And so essentially how that relates to the acting world, or trying to finish a script or a work of any type of writing, is you keep trying. Try until, because if you keep going and keep pushing and keep trying, you're eventually going to, again, if you're aware, you're going to see where your mistakes are, where your weaknesses are, and continue to improve upon yourself. So maybe this line, just to give a really granular example, maybe this line didn't work. It doesn't feel strong. So because we live in this very resourceful world and you can look anything up, you can do your own research and teach yourself, what do I need to do to make that line stronger? And so then you continue and you keep moving forward and you don't stop.
Okay. So for those of you joining us just now, this is Putting Together Conversations with life coach Tommy, and we're talking about the true definition of failure. But on our card, we had a different thing, and I can't see my card right now, but let me go over to that. Just to make sure that folks understand that we're not just talking to you guys about failing. Finding the purpose.
Yeah.
I don't know why that was so hard today. Today is not a good day, let me just tell you, folks. Side disclaimer is I was having a panic attack this morning. For those of you that don't know, I suffer from anxiety and panic attacks. And I'm leaving my house for several days, and it got me. So my brain is trying to get there. So you might have to run most of the show today.
Totally fine.
Okay, so finding your purpose. Say, for instance, again, using myself. When I was in my 30s and went back to college, I thought my purpose in life was going to be a alcohol and drug counselor. And this is a true story, actually. But I was really heavy into drugs and alcohol at the time. Research. I couldn't handle it. It was just not possible for me. I was too involved in drugs and alcohol. So I didn't finish. I have the idea that I want to go back and get my diploma, my certificate. Is having the idea of wanting to do it enough to not consider it a failure? Or do you actually have to be in motion to do it?
It's a good question. And although we have, before I answer that, that's how I feel about comedy. I've had 3 bombed sets and I haven't been back on stage since. Okay. So here's a really good example. You've had 3 bombed sets, Chris. Why not have a 4th and a 5th? Because here's the thing about comedy, here's the thing about writing, here's the thing about acting. You're going to suck in the beginning. You have to accept that.
Right.
You're going to suck. And as long as you can get up there, have the balls to especially get on stage and throw yourself out there, you're going to get an idea, through this trudging, and comedy is freaking, I have huge respect for you to get up on stage and expose yourself like that. But if you can continue to trudge through it and keep going, you're not a failure yet. Because one thing is, you're still alive, Chris. So you still have a chance to write jokes and get through your fear. And, we can talk, I don't want to make this about teaching how to write comedy and how to practice and get over the fear. Because the main topic is purpose and failure. But right now you haven't failed yet. You've done 3 bad sets. That's fine. Okay. There are many, 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 many famous multi-million-dollar comedians who have had hundreds of failed, bombed sets. They've embarrassed themselves, but they go back to it. They go back to the writing, and they look at what didn't work, and they throw it out the window and try to find something else, find something more relevant. Try to have this conversation about what didn't work, what did work.
So kind of what you're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, identifying what your passion, what your purpose, since we're talking about purpose, identify what your purpose is in life. Mm-hmm. Like we were talking about that right before we signed on too. Like I consider myself like a full round entertainer. I'm not an expert at everything, but I pretend to know everything. And so everything from acting to hosting to stand-up comedy, I try a little bit of everything. I'm obviously never going to be a counselor. That's just not going to be for me. But I found my purpose in life, which is entertainment, social media. Can you change your purpose at some point? Can you change your outlook? Let's say, like I just said right now, I didn't really have the energy to want to go back and finish my counseling. I want to, like I'd love to have that under my belt, but my full-time purpose is to do social media and entertainment. Can the person identify their new purpose and go after that? I guess that's the question.
Absolutely. The easy answer is you can do whatever the hell you want to do. There's no, the beautiful thing about purpose is, and just to express personally, I'm a nihilist in the sense of I don't think there's any purpose to this life. I'm also agnostic, where I have no idea, what to believe or who to believe in. So because I'm a nihilist and I'm agnostic, and I'm nihilist in the most positive sense, I'm not like depressed nihilist, angsty or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong. We got some good feedback from Chris. I'm glad.
Well, stick around, Chris.
But
if you have more questions, we'll
also, I'm not done with you, Chris. Yeah. So stick around. Still have some thoughts to finish. But like I said, the nihilism that I have, that I carry around in my sessions, in my life, is that the fact that there is no purpose, and the reason I say fact is because you have all different types of religions that, say this is your purpose, this is your purpose, this is your purpose. Well, either all of them are wrong, or because they all have different ideas. So what I think, and again, I don't want this to be philosophy of religion suddenly, but because it's nihilism, just getting back to that and off religion, you can find your own purpose, and that's the most beautiful thing in this world, is that there is no purpose, because if there actually was some sort of unquestionable thing that said, hey, this is your purpose, and this is what you have to live by your entire life, that's a lot of pressure on one person.
Right.
I give the example of kings and queens or princes and princesses. They grow into it, and I honestly sometimes feel sorry for them on some level. Not really, because they're born into wealth, but whatever. But I do feel bad for them on an emotional sort of life coaching sense, because they have to they have no free will. And they have to unquestionably take on this duty that they are a monarch or a future monarch.
Right.
So that is their purpose. You can be envious of them on some level because they're just given this purpose. But the reality is that nobody has any purpose. The purpose you have is what you make for yourself. So 5 years ago, 7 years ago, or however long ago it was, your purpose was one thing. Suddenly something happened and you found inspiration elsewhere. Now that is your purpose.
Got it. Because we have a lot of adults watching the show. A lot of my friends are adults. I'll use quotes. I didn't say mature. I said adults. So as an adult, especially when it comes to like entertainment, because we are in LA, and we touched on this on another episode. Yeah. We want to do something artistic, something creative, but we feel like our purpose is to get married, take care of the family, get a 9-to-5 job, work hard, save a little money for retirement. That's your purpose in life. But what we're talking about here now is that's not the bottom all written in stone purpose.
Right.
Like you can change your passion, you can follow your dreams and your goals, and that becomes your new purpose per se.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Absolutely. And to comment on that, what you were mentioning earlier about, finding a career, having a kid, or having kids and getting married and all this stuff, on a, not to make this too heady, but on a cultural anthropology level, you look back 2,000 years ago, your purpose was to live the next day, or maybe 5,000 years ago. Your purpose was to find food and live the next day. And if you found an attractive, cave woman,
or man,
so it's not 5,000 years ago. This is like 10,000 years ago. Anyway, the point is like the purpose of your life was very different. It was basically to survive.
Right.
So then, because we have the cultural development of modern civilization, now we have these different purposes. And you could even go back into, medieval times. You could go back 1,500 years ago. Your purpose was to worship God and do all this other stuff. And it was very regimented. You were born into it. Now, purpose, it's a lot softer. But we do have these social pressures on a sociological level that our purpose is get a house, get married, make a career, all this stuff. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that if somebody wants that to be their purpose. If it's original and from them and helps them become satisfied. It's funny because I had a note here, a quote from Heath Ledger. He basically said, and this is super paraphrasing, that everyone asks you about if you're married, how's your career, do you have kids? But no one ever asks you, are you happy?
Interesting.
And so I could say that, as a life coach, my purpose is to help my clients find a purpose that brings satisfaction to their life. Not happiness, satisfaction, because those are two very different things.
Right.
I'm not about, everyone being happy. I want them to be satisfied. So you can be satisfied in both happiness and unhappiness.
Cool. So for those of you watching, thank you for joining us. This is Put Together Conversations with Life Coach Tommy. Today's topic is identifying purpose. And if you have missed part of the show, go back and rewind when you get a chance. But basically where we are now is first, as you know, part of the show is to give you the 3 steps at the end. So as we go along, we'll identify those. So number 1, as far as we can tell right now, and correct me, is identifying your purpose, which doesn't necessarily has to be socially dictated. Is that the right way? Would that be correct? So it doesn't have to be a purpose that's socially dictated, culturally dictated, religiously dictated, because sometimes we fall into those a lot, especially Latino communities. So identify your purpose. And if the word purpose doesn't feel comfortable for you, what's your passion? What is going to bring you satisfaction in life so that you want to do it more? Because if it's something that it's imposed on you, you're not going to be passionate about it. You're not going to give it your 100%, and you won't succeed, whether it be a career or a relationship. Correct?
Absolutely. And it's just to give a personal example. As entertainers, as artists, we are consistently barraged with our own internal negativity, where it's like, is this worth it? Why am I doing this? I want to give up. Consistently.
Right.
But when I think about it, I think I could have been a therapist. I could have been a licensed therapist, psychologist, and I think to myself, it's like if I had pursued that, if I had chosen that as my purpose, my eyes, let's say I was a licensed therapist in Texas, my cost of living would have been much cheaper, but
for sure.
But my eyes would always be looking west and wondering, what would have happened if I had moved to LA and pursued acting? So that's my purpose outside of life coaching. So, and again, you do have children who are raised to believe that they should be accountants or doctors, and if they grow up and they're 19 and they do identify with that purpose, absolutely, then the familial influence has helped them. And also, if your purpose is commitment to religion, by all means, if it brings satisfaction, go for that as well. Right. But there are people who are raised to think that, I have to be committed to the religion, I have to be a pastor, or I have to be this or that, and then they become that, and you see their stats are there. It's like you see them doing other things that are scandalous, and it's because they didn't commit to a purpose that brings satisfaction to their life.
So, number 1, purpose. Find your purpose, in parentheses, your passion. What is going to bring you satisfaction in life? And and then number 2 that I've written down is learn as much about your purpose, per se, or your passion. And we're going to take the example of Chris, that he had 3 failures, we'll call them 3 failures, where he wasn't 100% on stage, and he kind of...
I would call them challenges.
Challenges? All right, there we go. And this is part of the show, guys. It's about having a conversation. So if you have any questions or any comments, please send them in and we'll read them online.
Absolutely.
So number 1, find your purpose. parentheses, your passion. Number 2, learn as much as you can about it so that you can confront the challenges.
Yeah.
Whatever challenge comes in your way, you've got the tools in your toolbox ready for it.
Absolutely.
Right?
And going back to Chris, Chris has identified with writing comedy and performing comedy. And I hope that he's really committed to that. And Chris, feel free to chime in if you're still watching. But the thing with that is, as soon as you commit, and you have to commit to comedy, then just like Daniel said, do as much research. Like, there should be so much knowledge in this brain, because here's a caveat, but it's relevant. I've been bodybuilding, and so my body is transforming, and people are starting to ask me, what am I doing? What am I doing in the gym? What am I doing to, whatever? And I tell them, it's like, well, and they're asking me for advice, and I can give nutrition and fitness advice until the end of time.
Right.
But what I tell them first and foremost is that the most important muscle you need to work out is your brain. Because if your mind isn't into it,
right,
it doesn't matter. You're not going to stick to it.
Right.
Doesn't matter. You could eat healthy for a week, and then suddenly, because your brain's not into it, you're eating pizza again, or you're drinking beer nightly.
And I got to test that. I've interviewed several nutritionists or athletes on Put It Together podcast, and they've given me some great suggestions and some great advice. I am not a gym person. I don't like sweating, and I don't get running or hiking for fun. I can sit at my computer for 8 hours and work and do amazing stuff. Well, I think it's amazing. But I'd rather do that than go to the gym. But not everybody is like that. So that's the...
Yeah. And also, and just...
I wanted to talk about myself.
That's okay. To go back to Chris, the comedian, and I hope that you think of yourself as a comedian, that you're not just trying comedy or you're just giving it a shot. You are a comedian because you've done 3 bombed sets. I'm using your phrase.
So let's can we use Chris? Chris, I hope you don't mind, and Chris is a good friend of mine. We're going to use Chris's example to fill in the spaces here. So first of all, his purpose, his passion. Hi, Tony. I was just on Tony's show on Wednesday. Hi, Tony. Chris's passion, Chris's purpose is to be a stand-up comedian. He wants to do that. Number 2, he's learning that not every time you go on stage, you're going to hit 100%.
Right.
So, but he's also stated that he's written jokes, just
he hasn't been able to deliver
share them.
Yeah.
So he needs to find a way to share those, be it a video, a live stream, come on my show and do a live show. Yeah. I mean, you have to find
some way. You've got to exercise this talent, and it's just like comedy, acting, singing. It's a muscle. You have to exercise. You
right.
have to, and you have to push yourself to a limit to where you can grow. So 3 shows so far. That's great. It's time for the 4th show, Chris.
Yeah, where is
and
the 4th?
And then it's time for the fifth show, and you have to accept that it could suck. But there are jokes that you have, and I guarantee, and I don't even know Chris, I don't even see him, but I know the fact that he's committed to this,
yeah.
that he's got to have something to say
yeah.
in order to have the balls to get up on stage and possibly humiliate yourself. You've got something.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. Because even as a life coach, I'm sure, I might be guessing here, but I'm sure the first times out, there were things that you said, and then you went home and you're like, oh, maybe I should have put it another way, or like.
Actually, no, I'm perfect. I've never made a mistake.
Yes, obviously, not you.
Well,
but
even today, I will not test waters, but I'll say things and I'll question myself later, and sort of have a little bit of anxiety, and it's like, should I have been so audacious? And I'll give a recent example. I won't obviously name the client, but I successfully helped the client get through the career hurdles. So we got past that, and now he wants my help helping him find a life partner.
Oh.
And so he's currently, and I can say all this because I'm not going to mention his name, but if he's watching, he'll know who this is. I'm being very specific. But he's currently dating 2 girls, and I told him, and I was audacious enough to say, based on what you've told me about these girls, and I'm very honest, and I say, and I'm basing this only on what you've told me, So it's the legal term is hearsay. I'm going to tell you that I don't see a future in either one of these relationships, and you should stop wasting your time. So I have that audacity, and I'm very honest. And so even then, after that session, I was like, should I have been so audacious? So I'm still questioning myself. But long story long, he actually really appreciates it.
Yeah,
and he
honesty
with me
works.
in the next session.
By the way, you just got an invite to come to Tony's show.
Oh, great. I thought he was talking about Chris for some reason, but yeah.
Yeah, no, Chris is actually in Portland. Tony is here in Whittier. I just, for those of you, Tony Gala has been following our show from the beginning. Thank you, Tony. And he is a singer. He was, and I was just on his talk show on Wednesday doing horoscopes. Once a month on the Tony Gala show, Lenguas Largas, I do horoscopes in Spanish.
Hey,
so check that out.
You're only supposed to plug me when we're talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. How dare I? I'm sorry. I've been cheating on you. It was a one-time thing with Tony. Actually, it'll be a once-a-month thing with Tony. I do feel like I cheat on people sometimes when I have guests on my co-host. But we're going to have more. For those of you just joining us, thank you. This is Putting Together Conversations, a show where we invite you to ask questions with our guests. And my co-host today is Life Coach Tommy. He's been on the show before. And thank you for doing this again.
Yeah.
The show is about having conversations, bringing experts in their fields to you so that you can ask questions from the comfort of home. So usually these are about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a perfect time to have lunch, grab a cup of coffee or a sandwich, and join us for a conversation. Today we are talking about identifying your purpose. And a couple of the steps that we've determined already are, number one, finding your purpose. What is your purpose? What is your passion? Before I continue to the next part, we sometimes confuse or identify purposes as being selfish, as this is my dream, this is my goal, but it doesn't have to be that way, correct?
Correct, and that's a really, really good point to bring up because it's a limiting belief, and it does limit people from actually pursuing their passion. And one of the most common things I have with my clients up front is I realize and I sense this, and it triggers me in the most positive sense, is that they've spent so much time trying to please other people and trying to serve other people that they haven't served themselves first.
Right.
And the problem with that is actually, people think they're being selfless, but they're actually harming the other people as well. Because here's my philosophy as a life coach, and this is how I work and get people on their side, is that if you serve yourself first, you can serve others in a more powerful way.
Right.
And again, it goes back to what I said at the top of this conversation at the beginning, is that you have to have a positive relationship with yourself. You have to serve yourself first, because if you serve yourself first, then you're able to serve your other people better. I had another client who his brother is trying to convince him to give up on film directing and move back to the East Coast. And the problem with that is that would be true failure. If you just quit film directing, and he's been out here for almost 2 decades.
Well,
he's had a good high level of success out here as a director, but not the success he wants. And so his brother's trying to convince him to just give up and move back to the East Coast. And what I've shown him, and again, it's when I say I've shown people, I ask a lot of questions and I get them to show themselves. But what he was able to show himself is that if he did give up and he went back to the East Coast with his family, he would never be able to forgive himself for failing at film directing.
Right.
And so he would take that out.
Excuse me.
He would have a negative relationship with himself, and he would take that out on everyone else.
I was about to get to that, yeah.
So that service that he did to other people, he's actually robbing them of his true self, and he's robbing himself of his true self.
Got it.
And so I asked him basically, is there a level of success that you can obtain that can help you see your family more often? And so I got him more finding his purpose to achieve film directing, not for fame and fortune alone, or a high level, a good paycheck basically, but also to be in a financial position so that he can go to the East Coast more often than he is.
You brought up something that triggered me. Because one of the, can we call them excuses? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
One of the excuses that we might hear a lot is, I have responsibilities. I can't pursue my passion as fill in the blank because I have responsibilities. Then you look at deeper, they're not satisfied with their life, and like you said, and again, we're not going to go that deep, but leads to alcohol, drugs, cheating, all kinds of other ripples in the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of you again watching, we are talking about identifying your purpose, and the 2 steps that we identified so far is number 1, identify your purpose. Obviously, what's your passion, and then these are equivalents. Like, what's your purpose in life? What's your passion? Remember, your purpose can change over time because your life can change, your profession can change, your marital status, you have children, you come into money, whatever the thing is.
Your inspiration can change as well.
Right.
It's like you could watch a movie and suddenly about aviation, and suddenly you're inspired and you want to be an aviator. It's completely, there's no one path. There's no one thing.
You don't get one shot at passion or
you can do.
purpose.
Obviously, if you're, and I'm going to give a really granular example so that I can prevent this, but this sort of comment or mentality. But just to be honest, if you're 65 years old and suddenly you're inspired to be a rocket scientist, it might not be possible. But having said that, it's still possible.
Right.
Notice I said it might not be possible.
Right.
It's going to be very, 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 very difficult considering just, physiology, but it's still possible.
Right.
Again, this is a personal thing, but so that I can personally stay inspired to continue bodybuilding and sculpting and transforming my body, I watch these motivational bodybuilding videos of people, working out a lot. And the thing that they always say, and the thing that Arnold Schwarzenegger said about bodybuilding, is that people always say it's impossible until somebody actually does it.
Right.
It was impossible for us to land on the moon. We landed on the moon.
Amen.
It was impossible for man to fly. We're flying now. It was impossible for something as simple as wireless technology.
Here we are.
We have it.
Here we are, going live with you folks. See, yeah. But you're right, because on a personal note, I wanted to be an actor for a long time. Cancer came in and literally kicked my butt. I really thought my career was going to stop. There was no chance. Then I got better, but my passion or my purpose in life kind of expanded. I'm like, I still want to be in the entertainment business. I want to be in the industry, but I also want to be more of an advocate, and I wanted to heighten up my spirituality. It was all possible. Has it been easy? No. I've gone through a couple of agents and finally found somebody that I really enjoy working with. I've advocated at the wrong places for the wrong thing, and sometimes the message didn't come through, and I had to practice. And then now my spirituality, I get clients to call me and want me to visit with them. Yeah. But it took some work, and it took some people telling me, oh, you're 40-something, you're not going to be able to do this. But I get back and tell them, I was like, there have been a lot of actors who in their 40s got their first big break, yeah, and went on to become great. So I'm still available, by the way. So which is step number 2 that we've determined is learn and practice and do as much as you can. So we're going to go back to Chris. We're going to pick on Chris today. Chris's purpose right now is to want to be a stand-up comedian. Yeah. So he needs to learn or practice more. So this is a challenge for you, Chris. We want to see what you're going to do with your purpose. I haven't gone to number 3 yet, so we'll get to number 3. For those of you, usually by the end of the show, we have 3 pointers to give to you. I haven't figured out number 3 yet, but we've got about 20 minutes to go. So,
well, I do want to make a comment on something you mentioned earlier about responsibilities.
Okay.
There are a lot of people that use that as an excuse. I have responsibilities. And what I say to people who, well, I can't do this because I have responsibilities. So, well, it's cliche, but if you say that you can or you can't do something, then it's over.
Yeah.
If you say that you can't, then why are we talking?
That's like people. This is used a lot here in LA. I'm busy. I'd love to do that, but I'm busy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're all busy.
Well, here's the thing. So when somebody says, well, I have responsibilities, and this goes into I'm busy, you chose this. You chose those responsibilities. It's your choice. It's your choice to be busy.
Right.
So people don't realize this responsibility they have of their own personal life. So, and this is a total different tangent, but relevant. It's like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, going back to Arnold Schwarzenegger, he always said, I don't want to give up pizza, or I had pizza last night. And so Arnold Schwarzenegger says, well, what are you hungrier for? Are you hungrier for that pizza? Or are you hungrier to have a professional physique? What are you hungrier for? So for those who say, I have responsibilities, what are you hungry for? Are you hungry to be an actor? Are you really hungry for it? Or are you hungrier to maintain these responsibilities that you've chosen? Like people say, well, I have bills. Like, you signed up to pay those bills. Could you live without some of those bills? And then I'll dive into financial management and helping them identify, you don't have to spend $200 a month for the apps you don't effing use. So let's go on your phone right now and unsubscribe to all those apps. I just gave you $200 fucking dollars. Sorry. I do cuss when I get really passionate about it. So
put your children to bed now, folks.
I do. I warn my clients usually about, on our first session, usually 10 minutes into, they'll trigger me and I'll get really passionate about something and then I'll drop the F word. And
this show has just gone downhill, folks. Downhill.
We just lost 10
Tim, yeah,
people.
thank you, Life Coach Tommy, for but yeah. Life is crude. Life is crude sometimes.
Right. So basically, I show them there's all these choices. I'm busy. I have responsibilities. I can't do this. It's like, well, we dig into why, and sometimes when somebody says, well, I want to be an actor, it's like, okay, we dig into the why. It's like, well, why do you want to be an actor? And sometimes I show them that their why isn't strong enough, and they're not. And I can alleviate and realign their focus to something else. Because they wanted to be an actor, because they grew up watching Sylvester Stallone in Rambo, and that was their only inspiration. But they don't have any sort of dedication or commitment to building a character and portraying that and really opening themselves. They don't have that in line. And so if I can identify that they're not on board with that kind of stuff, then I asked them, I was like, well, do you really want to be an actor? And I can get them back into something else. Because sometimes we do choose things. We do find purpose. And again, this is all part of life. We do find a purpose that we're not actually able to commit to because it's not really our purpose.
Got it. So for those of you joining us right now, this is Particular Conversations. Our topic today is identifying purpose. And so far, what you just said made me rethink my 1, 2, 3s. Because although purpose is the theme of the show today, what you just said made me think that's my first step. Like, what do you want more, or what are you hungry for in life? What do you want more in it? And I realized, and I'm going to use myself as an example again. What did I want more? I really wanted to be in the industry. I wanted to be in the industry. I wasn't getting the roles that I wanted or the auditions I wanted. So I created all these shows so that I can continue myself in the industry, have people see me and be relevant. Mm-hmm. So that was what I wanted. My purpose is to bring folks information that I think it's important. Example, the show, like bringing purpose to my purpose, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then number 3, I had to learn how to get better. I recently, and this is a little side story, an acquaintance friend passed away 4 years ago, and I didn't know he had passed away until I thought about him and went and looked at his page, and he had passed. I did remember that he was a guest on my show back when I first started in 2012, and I went back to listen because I thought maybe his friends hadn't heard about that, so I wanted his friends and family to hear his interview. Yeah. I went back and listened to this interview from 2012. It was episode 33. I suck. It was so bad. I'm basically on the air for about 20 minutes by myself, just rambling, really had no structure, no purpose. And I think about that, and I think about this show, and I'm like, wow. Yes, I'm going to flatter myself for a minute. I really have, because you have to be critical. You have to really realize, is my purpose real? And am I really getting better? Am I really learning something? And I sat there, and then I edited the last episode that I had with Kai, and I was like, wow, what a difference in the way that I speak in front of a camera, and the way that I can handle conversation. And even my voice has changed. Not to put it down, but I sounded very Texas Nelly when I in the other show. I think I'm gonna be a Nelly. I'm a gay man. I can handle it. Sure. But I realized that over the last 7 years, I have learned to handle the camera better, to handle myself better, to have a conversation, which I didn't know. So, is I guess my question now is that fair to put them in that order? What do you want more out of life? Identify your purpose and then learn as much as you can about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And accept that failure is giving up. Accept that you're going to have challenges. You're going to have mistakes. To use Chris's example, you're going to have bomb sets. Daniel, if you had watched episode 33 and said, God, I effing suck. What am I doing? And you never did another show, you and I may have not connected. No. And we may not have helped Chris.
You're welcome, Chris.
And we may not have influenced Adam from last, my fraternity brother,
that's right.
Adam from last episode. He messaged me and he was so appreciative of what we spoke about. And so because you allowed yourself to suck, because you continue to grow this, and maybe you didn't even know you sucked. Maybe you just were ignorant.
I thought it was awesome. I thought, oh my God, for 20 minutes I've been handling this conversation. Right.
But that's a good example that if you had looked at that and said, God, I suck, I can't do this, just like Chris is saying right now. And for Chris, you owe it to the world. If anything, you owe it to the world to give your message. You owe it to yourself too. And I just wanted to comment on what you were doing is made me think of something, is that no matter what you pursue, no matter what it is, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a writer, whether you're a comedian, you are the only one that is allowed to criticize you. Allow people to give you notes, but you are the only one that is allowed to criticize you. You are the only one that is allowed to say you suck, or these are the areas that you would need to improve.
Okay.
No one else is. Just like the agent who told you that or whoever told you that you're too old, or you're in your 40s and nobody's going to cast you. It's not up to that person. This industry is so subjective. You had 3 bad audiences. Maybe your material doesn't actually suck. You just need to find the right audience.
Yeah.
So this art and a lot of things are just so subjective. Again, as long as you are trying, as long as you are committed, as long as you stay hungry and you keep exercising the muscle, you are the only one that's allowed to criticize you.
Cool. Let me throw a little wrench in this just to see where it goes. Play devil's advocate. Again, let's use Chris. Chris is trying. He's doing his stand-ups. It's not going in the direction it goes. I come and tell him, you know what? Maybe it's time to look for another passion. Maybe it's just time to call it quits. And he, for some reason, listens to me. Would it be, I don't know how to say this. Can we then say, see, if you were really passionate about it, you wouldn't have quit. You wouldn't have listened to anybody, but you listened to people and you quit. So this obviously was not your passion. Do you know what I mean? Like we're feeding into the failure side of it.
Yeah.
It's still his responsibility for listening to those naysayers, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like it's his responsibility. However he reacts, going back to the equation we introduced last session.
Yes.
However he reacts to that is his responsibility. So if he listens to that and concludes on his own, oh well, maybe Daniel's right. Maybe I shouldn't do this. That's his responsibility. He shouldn't. As his life coach, I will say, don't listen to Daniel. That's a conclusion you have to make on your own. But here we have a failure. You have failed at comedy. Chris, he has failed at comedy because he's given up.
Right.
And I do have a friend, we haven't seen each other in ages, but I follow her on Instagram. She now has a successful comic career. But I remember the Instagram stories. I remember the stuff from 6 years ago where she didn't know what the hell she was doing. She didn't know, and she was like constantly complaining and all this stuff through Instagram. Now she's just completely baffled at her success. Like, she's performing at a comedy store, she's performing with big names, she's getting flown places, and now it's like, oh, where's her now? I won't say. Oh, Erica. I'll say Erica. Where's Erica
you
now?
just touched on something other interesting, because this is the great thing about this show, and I've just discovered it, is that we can tie in like the 3 episodes that we've done now, because not only are we talking about what are you hungry for, what do you really want the most, have you identified your purpose, and are you doing everything you can to learn or practice or rehearse or whatever it is that you need to do to become really good at it. It's not overnight, and it's not guaranteed not to fail at some point. Mm-hmm. There's going to be some bumps in the road, but you have to keep going. Failure is not falling. Failure is not getting up. Right. That's not a soap bumper sticker. I'm sure I've read it somewhere. That's not from me. But then you brought up last episode, which is the E plus R equals O, which is, remind me.
Yeah. Event plus response equals the outcome.
Got it. So the event, Chris went and did stand-up. Mm-hmm. The response, people didn't laugh the way he wanted or didn't.
Well, I'll correct that. So the event was actually him doing stand-up and them reacting negatively. That's the event.
Oh, okay.
His response, as he mentioned, is he hasn't been to the stage since.
Ah, okay.
So the outcome for that equation is now he's not doing comedy.
Now he's not doing comedy, which you should, because you are funny. We've talked. But then what you were just saying about your friend that continually complained, and that takes us back to our very first episode, which was neurolinguistics, mm-hmm. which is the way that we talk to ourselves. So this really, your purpose doesn't start with necessarily what do I really want the most out of life. It goes back to, let me convince myself or talk to myself in a way that I'm going to make it my purpose in life. And like you said, I usually don't go back and listen to my episodes because I don't want to hear myself. Sure. I think I sound horrible on recordings. But had I really gone back and listened to it and be like, oh my God, you suck, that was horrible, I would not have the motivation or the outcome to want to continue. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm being smart just sitting next to him.
It happens. It's contagious.
Damn.
But yeah, just to go back to that, if we get really granular and really basic, is absolutely Chris needs to wake up and say, okay, this is part of the gig. This is part of the work. You have to do this. And I had a thought about. I lost it, so I won't. I hate it when people was like, oh, I had a thought.
And it's gone.
And then
See, I'm getting smarter sitting next to him, and he's getting dumber. That's how it works. He'll be talking Spanish before you know it, like really good Spanish.
More than just kitchen Spanish.
More than kitchen Spanish. And if you don't know what kitchen Spanish is, message me, we'll tell you. We're down to about the last 10 minutes. Thank you for following us. This is Putting Together Conversations with Life Coach Tommy. We have different guests that come on the show. If you are an expert in your own field, shoot us a message and you can be here. But this week we're talking about identifying your purpose. Which now we've kind of taken steps back. And my question would be is, if you're not following your purpose in life, if you're not following your passion, what are you really hungry for? What do you want the most out of life? Mm-hmm. And as we've identified a little bit, you have to be eager. You have to be a little bit selfish, mm-hmm. a little greedy. You have to want it more than the other fella to be able to succeed. Mm-hmm. But if you listen to people and decide that they're correct, if you let other people decide what your passion or your purpose is, mm-hmm. and you stop, then that's when complete failure kicks in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And one final note for Chris. I'm going to give him some really powerful life coaching right now.
Hold on, folks.
Hold your seat. So a lot of people, they say, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to be this, I want to be that. Right now, Chris, I'm sensing, and again, I don't know unless we have a dialogue, but I'm sensing that Chris wants to be a comedian. That's what I'm sensing. So he says, I want to be a comedian.
Right.
For just as a side, you are a comedian. You've already participated in it. You are a comedian. Now, I want to be a successful comedian is a different realm of thought. So the point is that, Chris, I want you to look in the mirror, and instead of saying, I want to be a successful comedian, look at yourself and say to yourself, and then write this down, because when you say it, it's gone and it doesn't exist anymore. But when you write it down, you pull it out of your brain and you make it exist. I want to be a serious comedian needs to be changed to, I will be a serious comedian. And then gauge your reaction to how that feels, because I guarantee suddenly your brain is going to get really scared and really committed to this idea of being a successful comedian. And then the biggest thing is, why the hell are you doing this? Why do you want to do this? So ask yourself, or answer that question after you've come to the terms with the idea, I will be a stand-up comedian, a successful one. But why? Why is that your purpose? Why do you want to pursue that? And that goes for anyone pursuing anything. Don't be a wannabe. Turn it into something that you will pursue.
I like that. Don't be a wannabe. I like that.
Yeah. I meet a lot of wannabes in the city. It's frustrating. It's not frustrating. It's just a little annoying.
It's. We talked about this in another episode. L.A., Hollywood, it's its own beast. People don't understand it, and you're right. We live here and we don't understand it. So, right. And it's not to get into it, but because you're in the bubble, you just know it to be. But really good notes there, folks. So we're going to go over number 3. So today's episode is about identifying your purpose, and on the other side of the coin, I guess, it's identifying what failure is. So number 1, what are you hungry for? What do you really want out of life? What do you really want to be when you grow up? And that goes regardless of what age you are. Like, I'm 48 and I still want to be a famous actor, TV host when I grow up. That's what I want to be. But we're going to change that. Hold on. And then number 3, learn as much as you can. And with the learning, in parentheses, is good times, bad times, falling down, getting yourself back up, meeting the wrong people, meeting the right people, and everything that comes with it, and just giving yourself the opportunity to experience all that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we don't give ourselves permission, and I feel like we disguise it under, I have responsibilities, I'm too busy, I'm too old for that, I don't have the skills for that, or I don't have the looks for that. I don't have the looks for television. That's why I do podcasts. But I'm going to do it anyway.
There are a lot of successful actors that don't have the look for television, yet they're making millions of dollars a year.
I'm going to say thank you to that.
No, that was a comment not to you, but a comment to what you said.
So basically you just said, yes, you're ugly enough to do it.
Yes, I agree. You look great.
And this will be Tommy's last episode on the show. Thank you, yes.
It's been fun.
And I'll tell you one other reason why. Not just kidding. So then change your wannabe. Like, stop wanting to be stand-up comedy per se. I wanted to do stand-up comedy. That was a wish. That was a dream of mine after cancer. So I went and signed up for a 5-week course. Thank you, Cool Beans Comedy and Cool Beans U. I went and took a class and decided I wanted to do some stand-up. I took the classes, did the work, did a show, did a second show at the Ice House Pasadena. Thank you very much. Hello, Ice House Pasadena. So it was no longer I will be. It's like, I am a stand-up comic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I am a stand-up comic. I've written my own material. I did it in a show. I got some laughs. I got some high fives. So I am a stand-up comic. Will I do it again? Yes. I was about to say, I'm just really busy right now. But I'm not going to say that because that's totally like against the show right now.
Yep.
So don't be a wannabe. Do it. There are classes. There are videos. And that's the beauty of the world we live in. I mean, we're on the internet right now.
Yep.
You can go on YouTube and find
There's
everything.
So much. We live in a beautiful world. Like, there's no excuse. I mean, 50 years ago, it was a little bit harder, and now there's so many things you can watch and teach yourself. Like, going to college, I would argue that is unnecessary sometimes because you can learn all that stuff on your own. YouTube, just freaking everything.
Yeah.
But I also want to comment on, you have to do it. You have to do it. As a bodybuilder, the only way I'm going to make these things grow is if I lift the weights.
I knew you were going to show them at some point. At some point, the guns were going to come out.
The only way that I can make this grow is if I lift the weight. I have to do a bicep. I have to do the exercise.
Yeah.
There's no magic pill. There's no, even the people who are crazy enough to do anabolic steroids, they still have to go to the gym and lift the weights. They don't suddenly magically turn into, a muscle man. You have to do it. You have to do the exercise. You have to do it.
All right. So again, we're down to the last minutes. For those of you watching, this is Put It Together Conversations. Today's topic has been identifying your purpose. But I want to take you back because this goes so much further than this episode. So if this is the first time you join us, go back, check out YouTube or our Put It Together podcast page, and the videos are on there. But on YouTube, they're edited down to the basics of the show. Check them out, Daniel Garza Conversations, and you'll find them. To identify your purpose, you have to figure out what you really want out of life. What do you really want to be? And so maybe your passion and purpose is working a 9-to-5 job and being an accountant, which I was an accountant. So being a mom or a dad, maybe that is your passion. Maybe that is your purpose in life, and that's what you want to be. Awesome. But do it. Just do it.
Yeah. You were the only one who can answer it.
Yeah. And so what do you really want out of life? Identify that purpose, and then learn as much as you can from it.
Yeah. And then do it.
And then, if you're like not sure, go back and watch the first 2 episodes with Life Coach Tommy, and we will talk about neurolinguistics, how we talk to ourselves, and then the Born This Way, which
Born This Way.
Yeah, that was a really interesting show. Not just because we put it, but stuff that I learned and that I'm utilizing now. And I thought about this. I had an audition earlier this week, and it's for a dad, just a generic dad, and
sure.
Recorded it, sent in the self-tape, got the feedback from my agent, and he's like, because I always complained that all I got were immigrant roles or farmer or gardener or the fruit vendor, and they all had an accent, and I was tired of having to do an accent. So I didn't need to do one for this. And he wrote me back a note, which was funny at the time, but I realized what he meant. He's like, you don't sound like an immigrant anymore. Which I don't mean like you're like, well, I don't mean it that way. I mean the Hollywood term as an immigrant. Yeah. So he wrote back and he's like, you just sound like a dad. Mm-hmm. It's like there was nothing else. And I was like, that's what I've been working on.
Right.
So I just got chills. So this is a good ending to like what we're talking about. Like I've been working so hard to not have an accent. Not because I'm ashamed of it, but because in Hollywood it just works better. Mm-hmm. That finally one of my agent came back and said, wow, you just sound like a dad.
Yeah.
And I dressed really bad for the role, so I looked like a dad. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Chris, thank you for using you as our guinea pig for the day, our
3
example.
times in a row.
I know, yeah.
Every episode.
But thank you, Chris, for following us. For those of you, this is Put It Together podcast Put It Together Conversation, a spin-off of Put It Together podcast. Tommy Lee Kirby, our resident life coach. You are the resident life coach now. I know, this is a whole show now. Please check us out. They are kind of random. We don't have a specific date because our guest is when they're available. But if you follow me on Daniel G Garza or on Put It Together podcast, you will see the notices for when we're on next. Any last thoughts before we go?
Yeah, go to lifecoachtommy.com. I write blogs religiously. I haven't written one in a while, but they're there. There are many blogs you can.
But since you're an atheist, that really does.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm agnostic.
I'm sorry, agnostic. Sorry.
Lifecoachtommy.com. A lot of good resources on there. A lot of videos that I do. And yeah.
Any last piece of advice on what we talked about today?
Like I said, start. That's the first step. Knowing that. Here's the thing about I'm agnostic, so the thing about I do believe that there's energy in the world, and the projection and law of attraction and all that stuff. I buy into that. So the universe does this really magical thing. If you start pursuing something that's going to stretch yourself, the universe is going to send you challenges And the only reason the universe is doing that is to test your resolve, more to show yourself how far you're willing to go to pursue this amazing thing. So start, but no, just accept it. Accept it from the very beginning that it's going to be challenging, no matter what. It's going to be challenging. When I go to the gym and I see these people who are years ahead of me, I don't think that they just woke up that way. That they just walked into the gym and left and woke up that day. They've been going to the gym for 5-6 years. They did the work, they got the injuries, they got the soreness. Same thing with actors. Sometimes some people fall in and some people have been lucky, they've born into it, whatever, but there are more people who, if you read their profile, you read their history, have gone through so much to get to where they are. And we, the ignorant public, just think, oh, all they did was do an audition and they got cast and then they're famous. It's not how it works. So start, but when you start, accept that it's going to be challenging. But you have to get through that.
What did you say? It got to me, and I know we're going over time, but it got to me because after everything that I've been through health-wise over the last 40 years, it's been a challenge. It's a challenge every day. But if there's one thing I can honestly, wholeheartedly tell you is that no matter what your body tells you you can't do, no matter what your brain tells you can't do, if you just stick with it a little bit, sometimes all you need is that 1% of energy, and you can do it. So if you want to keep this conversation going, follow like Coach Tommy or follow me at Danny G Garza. Look for us on YouTube. And thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next time.
We're going to have our own life coaching session right after this.
We'll see you next time. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.